You're listening to The Voice of Russia in London with me, Juliet Spare. Should women be given the freedom to choose whether to have their baby at home or in a hospital? A recent study by Oxford University found the risk of complications for first-time mums who had a home birth was significantly higher than those who delivered in hospital. The study reported there were 9.3 serious complications per 1,000 home births, compared to 5.3 per 1,000 hospital births. And that's for first-time mothers. Joining me in the studio is Beverley Beech, Chair of the Association for Improvements in the Maternity Services, a pressure group campaigning for change in maternity care, and Maureen Treadwell, co-founder of the Birth Trauma Association. On the telephone, author of 3 parenting books and mother of 3 children, Liz Fraser, and from the Royal College of Midwives, Director of England, Jacque Gerrard. The debate over home births has been reignited after a young mother bled to death after being allegedly brainwashed by a midwife into giving birth at home in 2010. It was the 29-year-old's second pregnancy. Her first one ended with an emergency caesarean section. Yet despite this history, an independent midwife working outside the NHS allegedly convinced the woman that a home birth would be more fulfilling than one in hospital. The young mother stopped breathing after she gave birth at home and was eventually admitted to hospital, where she bled extensively and later died. The case is now under investigation by the Nursing and Midwifery Council, and this case highlights the arguments for and against home births, both in the media and within the medical profession. So do the benefits for mothers giving birth at home outweigh the risks? I'd like to start with you first, Beverley Beech, the Chair of the Association for Improvements in Maternity Services.
Well, can we just get some facts straight? The newspapers have misled the public, as usual, on these issues. The mother had had a birth experience previously, and she didn't want to go back into hospital. But what she did was she negotiated with the consultants at 2 hospitals to say, I would like to bring a midwife of my choice into hospital to be with me. They would not agree to that. So she didn't make a choice of home birth. She had a home birth that she felt she had no option but to have at home. And she had an independent midwife who looked after her. The coroner actually said the midwife gave exemplary care antenatally and postnatally. What the midwife did was she missed a piece of placenta, which is not difficult to do. She stayed 4 hours with the woman after the birth. So when she left the woman, there was no indication of any problems at all. And so she went home, not expecting problems. So this case, it's not a case of the midwife brainwashing the woman. The woman had searched the web. She'd made a decision to have the baby at home that was forced upon her, in a sense, because the midwives don't have right of access to hospital. And the ideal would have been for that woman to give birth in hospital.
But the question is, do the benefits for mothers giving birth at home outweigh the risks?
They do. The research that was done in the birthplace study, the excess number of babies with problems, with adverse outcomes, was in first-time mothers. But it was not dead babies. In order to get a statistically significant number of babies in that group, they included women who had, or babies that had brachial plexus injury, which is a nerve damage, a fractured humerus, fractured clavicle, and meconium staining. Now, these are not life-threatening conditions. If you took the baby deaths, it was not significantly different because there were not enough to assess. The similarity was too close. So the press has picked up on this and said, oh, first-time mothers is dangerous. That is not what the statistics show.
They're not suggesting the first-time mothers it's dangerous, but surely a review and a study by the University of Oxford and the findings, yes, they provide women with information and then women can make up their own mind.
Absolutely.
Right, well, let's move back to the question, though. of the benefits of mothers giving birth versus the risks accompanied to that. Liz Fraser, you're an author of 3 parenting books and a mother of 3 children. Did you have a home birth?
3 children, 3 natural deliveries, 3 deliveries in hospital. And I would never, ever consider doing it any other way, quite simply because birth is a natural process. It will go however it will go. We don't know how it will go, much as we love to control things and plan things and talk through our birth plan and go online and read about this, that and the other. A baby will come out how it comes out, and very often complications arise in very healthy women with healthy pregnancies, no complications, no reason for any concern. Suddenly something goes wrong. Okay, a breech baby, obviously we know that's where the baby's breached, so that would be a complication. You'd probably be advised to have the baby in hospital. But there are many, many examples of very healthy women who've had easy pregnancies, there's no problem that anyone can foresee, who have a baby at home, and somewhere along the line, something goes wrong. And for me, when we're talking about life and death, both of the mother and of the child, there is absolutely nothing on earth that would ever convince me that taking any risk is a good idea. You have it in the hospital, all the stuff is there. If something goes wrong, they're 20 seconds away, not a 20-minute drive in a car. Everybody's panicking, blood is being lost, baby's heartbeat is reducing. And the question you're asking today, do the benefits outweigh the risks? I honestly can't see the benefits. I don't see what the benefits are of having a baby in a place in which, there are any risks at all. If there's a risk,
there are lots of risks of hospital birth, please.
There are quite clearly risks. There are quite clearly risks because babies die at home under circumstances where, had they been closer to medical, proper medical, I say proper, but more medical and surgical intervention, they wouldn't have died. That right there is a risk.
Jacque Gerrard, you're from the Royal College of Midwives.
I think it is really sad that we have generalised sweeping statements, people who are, experts making statements on behalf of women. Women have
I'm not an expert, and I'm not making any statements on behalf of any women.
Evidence in the birthplace study stated of 65,000 women studied, for every 1,000 women who birthed under the study, 995 babies had a completely normal outcome. The lady that was speaking before was talking about lots of babies having poor outcomes. I'm sorry, but the evidence is clear. For every 1,000 women, 995 babies have a normal outcome. And I think we have to put this into perspective. We should not be shroud-waving, scaring women to death. We should be giving women the information, the evidence, and then give them the right to choose where they should have their baby.
They do have the right to choose.
Women are sensible and they know what's right for them and what's right for their bodies. We should not have people dictating to them what to do, neither medical nor lay people.
You're listening to The Voice of Russia in London with me, Juliet Spare. Should women be given the freedom to choose whether to have their baby at home or in a hospital? Do the benefits of a home birth outweigh the risks? Joining me in the studio is Beverley Beech, Chair of the Association for Improvements in the Maternity Services, Maureen Treadwell, co-founder of the Birth Trauma Association, author of 3 parenting books and mother of 3, Liz Fraser, and from the Royal College of Midwives, Director of England, Jacque Gerrard. OK, Maureen Treadwell, you're the co-founder of the Birth Trauma Association. A lively debate is already happening here on The Voice of Russia, which is great. But the question is, are the benefits of mothers giving birth at home outweighing the risks?
I think you have to look at individual women and how they see risk. Now, we've just heard one of your speakers saying that the risk is 5 in 1,000. But to some women, an additional risk to their baby of 1 in 200, which is effectively what that is horrific. And they wouldn't dream of taking that risk with their child. So it depends on how individual women look at the issue. I think it's really important, though, that women make a positive choice of home birth, because we deal with a lot of women who've been through the most awful traumas in perhaps their first pregnancy. And they say, I'm going to go for a home birth because I can't face going back to that hospital and all those horrible things that happened to me. But is that really a choice of home birth? Or is that really saying we're not doing well enough in the hospitals? And I think we really need to make sure that the choice of home birth, which should be available to women, is a genuine choice and they do genuinely understand the risks.
Jacque Gerrard for Royal College of Midwives.
Yes, we've recently done a survey of mothers, because it's not just midwives that we support, it's women as well and women's choice. And alongside Bounty, the actual numbers of women who haven't been given information and offered choice is quite significant. 20% of women, it was a large study, about 18,000 women, 20% of those actual women said, I wasn't even offered a choice. I had only one option, and that option was hospital. Now, I think that's a really significant figure when you think that we've got lots of information, we've got lots of evidence, we've got lots of things that we can tell women and prepare them for where to have their babies and discuss that. So I do think that things like timing, choice, information is really important so that women can make the sensible choices. And I would say that it is beneficial if a woman has that choice and is low risk and is first time and has her baby at home. The benefits are absolutely superb. And a woman that's gone through that experience will not deny that. She would support that statement. But it's not right for everyone. We have to be sensible about choice and making decisions.
Yes, and I think we have to be
Beverley Beech.
Be clear about this idea that hospital carries no risk. It carries a great deal of risk, and it depends on what the particular woman's position is. If she's a woman who's got complications, then hospital is the best place for her. But for those women who've got complications, the majority don't have. They're fit and healthy women. Those fit and healthy women have a 1 in 4 chance of having a caesarean section, a 1 in 4 chance of having an induction or an accelerated labour, which probably means they will lead on to a caesarean section. The babies don't breastfeed as well in women who've had interventions, and that has a significant health effect on the baby. And in the last but one confidential inquiry into maternal death, there were the leading cause of maternal death was suicide after childbirth. Wow. And that follows the experience of women's experiences in hospital. So please don't go saying that hospital is safe, because the evidence is growing that it is not safe. It's safe for a minority of women, and there are many more women who have different risk factors.
Mm-hmm. I don't think
Maureen Treadwell.
I don't think you can say, Beverley, that hospital isn't safe, because we've had the birthplace study actually showing the difference in outcomes.
Well, that's what it showed. It was safer having a baby in a midwifery unit, a freestanding midwifery unit, than it was having in an obstetric unit.
Not for first-time mothers.
Yes, but we're talking about women generally.
But I think there's the argument for first-time mothers, so I think Maureen, continue.
Yes, I think for first-time mothers there are different risks than for women who've had perhaps an uncomplicated first birth, and then by all means choose, because it does look as though if you've had an uncomplicated birth first time round and you want a home birth afterwards, then there is very little difference in risk. But I think there's a significant difference in risk for first-time mothers, and I think women need to know what the information on that is and shouldn't be misguided.
They do. They ought to go to the AIMS website and they'll find some information there.
You're listening to The Voice of Russia in London with me, Juliet Spare, and today we're talking about home birth. Do the benefits outweigh the risks? Joining me in the studio is Beverley Beech, Chair of the Association for Improvements in the Maternity Services, Maureen Treadwell, co-founder of the Birth Trauma Association, on the telephone, author of 3 parenting books and mother of 3, Liz Fraser, and from the Royal College of Midwives, Director of England, Jacque Gerrard.
I do think midwives, and whether it's independent midwives or midwives working on behalf of the NHS, do need to be armed with and give women information so that the women can. Women are sensible. Women are not going to put their babies deliberately at risk. I mean, let's be honest here. That's why they're mothers. They protect their babies, whether unborn or, following birth, etc. But if we're sensible and we give women the information about first-time mothers, about the birthplace study, etc., support them in their decision-making, and as the pregnancy progresses, if things change, give them more information and tell them that the risk has changed or the risk is the same, and let women decide themselves where they want to birth their babies. And it doesn't need to be at 12 weeks at booking. It doesn't need to be at 20 weeks. It should be as near to labour as possible. given the state of pregnancy, given what phase the pregnancy is, how the baby's presenting, etc., and then make the decision with the midwife so that she knows what she's doing and clear. And women will make sensible decisions. They have the human right to choose to birth at home.
Liz Fraser.
It is about choice and all of that, but I am in everything that all the research I've done and all the things I've written, I'm always very much thinking of the fact that we as mothers do need to put ourselves second often when we have children, and where, of course, hospitals have all kinds of negatives attached, not to mention the potential for infection and all sorts of things. You know, there are many negatives about a hospital environment, but the whole idea that being at home is very relaxing for the mother and then that's better for the baby, I think actually is sometimes overplayed. Having talked to many women who've had home births who said in the event it was actually not the case. And so I think for me, what I would be very interested in seeing is trying to combine the best of both. And so having hospitals which have facilities, which have environments, yes, which replicate as much as possible that home environment, somewhere for your partner to sleep, you know, somewhere for you to really feel at home, but have all of the medical stuff on hand should you need it. Look, if you want personal anecdote, I've had 3 children and my first baby was 9.2 pounds, 9 pounds 2 ounces. I'm a very small lady. I was small for dates. I was in at 40 weeks being measured. She came out at 42 weeks. She was a whopper and she was not coming out. Now, I could have had a home birth.
Probably
they said
because
that was
you were lying on your back at the time.
Oh, gosh, gee, I was not lying on my back at the time. I can jolly well tell you I was not lying on my back at the time. I was walking, puffing, panting on all fours, trying this, that, and the other. They tried everything to get that baby out, and she wasn't coming out. And I was offered the choice. You say women make sensible choices. I was offered the choice. I could have had a home birth. I was 23 years old, fit as a fiddle, no problems in my family. And they said to me afterwards, had you not been in a hospital, this would have been a medical emergency for your daughter. And it was very, very good that I was there. And that was the moment I thought, well, I would never consider having a home birth now. Because I could have for my subsequent babies, you know. But you just don't know. You don't know what's going to happen.
No, but that's what midwives are trained for. So the midwives is there to train to detect a problem and take you into hospital.
Why would you risk it? This is your child. Why don't you just have a baby?
You're presuming that home birth is risky, and I think you need to go away and look at the evidence.
There is more and more evidence coming in all the time.
Yes, and it's showing that hospitals are not the safest places for fit and healthy women to have babies.
OK, Maureen Treadwell.
I think, you know, what Liz is saying is so important, and it's about information and it's about how women view the risk of having their own baby. But on the point of home birth being safer, I think there are 2 things about the birthplace study that are very important. One thing is that for first-time mothers, as I've already said, the risk is definitely high. We can't get away from that. It was high.
Not if you look at mortality. There's little difference between the 2. You are combining all the risks.
Overall, the risks were higher, and they were all serious risks. For mothers who've had more than one child, one of the things we have to take into account is that those women were choosing to have a home birth. And when you looked at the kind of women that chose home birth, they were completely different in their profile to the women that choose to return to hospital. So if we're then going to promote home birth to a group of women who've previously chosen to go to hospital, I think there is a risk that those apparent advantages for second-time mums may not be so apparent. And in fact, there has been a Norwegian study that showed exactly that. If you start pushing women towards home birth, you actually get worse outcomes.
I don't think anybody's suggesting you push women. And can you tell me, is a fractured clavicle or a fractured collarbone a serious, life-threatening injury?
It certainly Erb's palsy. We deal with Erb's palsy children who've had serious problems, and those children are affected for life.
No, I'm asking you if.
Well, let's ask Jacque Gerrard. Beverley, repeat your question.
Maureen is saying that there are serious injuries, and I'm saying, is a fractured collarbone a serious life-threatening injury?
Not life-threatening.
But that's what you're saying.
It's not life-threatening. The comorbidity is obviously about the quality of life that the baby has thereafter, and some of these can be terribly serious in terms of the long-term outcomes for the baby. So I think we can't dismiss it. It has to be considered. But I think what Beverley's saying is, in terms of outcomes, it's not mortality, it's comorbidity. And I do think that we do need to take comorbidities seriously, and not dismiss them.
No, I quite agree with you.
Liz Fraser.
I'd like to ask a question, because often these debates really do become quite fraught, and there are very strong views on both sides. And I genuinely I always listen to all sides of argument, and I want answers. And I want to ask a question to Beverley, perhaps, which is why there is so much enthusiasm and encouragement of women to have births at home. I genuinely want to know, that's not weighted in any way. Why would you like to see more women giving birth at home than in a hospital?
Because for fit and healthy women, it's the safest place. They end up with better outcomes. They're happier women, and they've got fitter and healthier babies. It's plain and simple.
Only those that choose it, Beverley. There are many women who strongly object to being forced, or would object to being forced to give birth.
Nobody is suggesting you force a woman to make a choice of a home birth.
No, but following the birthplace study, there has been a midwifery document suggesting that midwifery units and out-of-consultant unit birth be the default. Now, we're very worried about that because we don't think it should be the default. Women should have a choice across the spectrum. Home birth if they know the risks, hospital birth when they've taken all things into consideration. But there shouldn't be a default position because that will become coercive.
Well, you have a default position of hospital birth at the moment. You're not objecting to that, I notice.
It's choice at the
Jacque,
moment.
is that you wanting to speak there?
It's in the document that's talking about the default position. Is this one of the Royal Colleges?
It's the RCOG NCT RCM document on commissioning for GPs.
Yeah, I think we're in debate, but it's about debating and discussing. It's not a definitive document at the moment. We are discussing, should this be the default position, if it's the discussion that I'm aware of. And I think it's healthy to have that debate. And there's no problem in having the debate. If at the end of the day it does become the default position, because as Beverley says at the moment, the default position is hospital. The survey I talked about, Bounty, the biggest choice that women were given was one choice. 65%, were offered the nearest local hospital. I don't think that, that's the default position at the moment. I don't think that there's any harm in having this debate. Well, should we turn it round the other way and have the default position completely midwifery-led care and the backup position being the hospital? What's wrong with that debate?
The Care Quality Commission found that, in fact, I think it was around 87% of women did have a choice, or it might have been 83%. Certainly a large percentage did have a choice. It wasn't a choice of all four, midwifery alongside and home birth, but they had a choice. So on that score, it does seem as though women are actually choosing hospital birth.
Well, but this was a recent Bounty survey where women are not actually getting the choices that we're supposed to be giving them, and I think we need to get better and slicker at that in terms of future, and particularly as maternity services are currently reconfiguring in the NHS, we need to be aware that it's not just home birth and hospital, but actually there are such things as midwife-led units. There are standalone midwife-led units, and there are alongside midwifery-led units, and these are safe as well.
Well, not for first-time mothers.
The full range. Midwifery-led units are safe for first-time mothers.
I'm confused here because, I'm looking at an article here which is talking about a large study which came out at the end of last year, and I've just lost the name of the study because I'm scrolling down. The Birthplace in England study, which compared, so 65,000 women, and one of the things that has come out of that is that almost half of women who chose to give birth at home in their first birth then had to be transferred into hospital because of complications during labour. Now, the outcome of that isn't mentioned, so they may very well have come out, everything was fine. But the point is that when I asked the question to Beverley, and I asked, why are you so keen to encourage women to have births at home? But when I look at stats like that, or for example, the comprehensive report said that in England, first-time mothers were 2.8 times more likely to suffer serious problems at home. I'm only reading what it says here, okay? I cannot but say to myself, I'm sorry, but that evidence points very strongly in the direction of not having a home birth. I can't conclude anything else from that.
The birthplace study didn't explain why the women were transferred into hospital. And many of the transfers, in fact, the majority of transfers to hospital, are not blue light emergencies and blood all over the place. They are, you have been in labour a rather long time, and we think that it might be advisable that you are in hospital. So they are transferred into hospital and very often give birth a few minutes after they get through the door.
We get a lot of, well, not a lot, we get a number of inquiries from women who've experienced transfer, and it is actually very traumatic however it happens. I mean, in some cases women have had perhaps a shoulder dystocia and are actually transferred folded in half with somebody almost pushing on their knees, and they have the degrading experience of being shoveled into an ambulance, and their description of that is deeply traumatic. They think the baby's going to die, they think that, they're going to die, they have all sorts of thoughts going through their mind as they travel. So I think the effect and the trauma on women of that process of transfer shouldn't be underestimated.
Is there a balanced enough argument out there, though, for women to make informed choices as to whether they have a birth at home or in a hospital?
Well, there's always the tendency to push in one direction or another. But at the moment, the publicity and the propaganda is so much focused on hospital birth is the safe place to be and home birth is terribly dangerous and don't go there. AIMS has been fighting about home births since the 1960s. And at that time, you were considered completely mad if you had your baby at home. When Marjorie Chew produced her evidence in the 1980s, showing that even for high-risk women, it was safer having a baby at home. And then we started campaigning on the safety issue, and women often choose a home birth because that is where they feel safe. They feel that the interventions that they've had in the hospital have caused many of the problems that they've been suffering from, and they're not willing to go in there again.
I do think that humans are very keen to you want a reason for something, especially when something emotive, like you're giving a birth, if something goes wrong, you want to be able to pin, if you like, the blame on something. So I think that when those things go wrong in hospital, what you said there, I think a lot of people are very quick to say, well, it was because I was in hospital and I didn't really like it and it was very inhuman and blah, blah, blah. I don't know what level of risk. Do the benefits outweigh the risk? What is the number? What number do you put?
Well, that's what an individual woman will decide on.
I think exactly. I would say it's an individual choice. So you have to give women the facts and the figures and the evidence and support them in making their choices. And it goes back to treating women as normal, sensible, who want to make the right choices for their unborn babies. We can't underestimate how sensible women are, and we've got to try and support them in their choices. I think it's a really interesting discussion. I mean, because virtually what this study showed, birth place study shows that giving birth in England is very, very safe. And again, the figures are for every 1,000 women, 995 babies had a completely normal outcome. And we're talking on the Voice of Russia radio. Our lovely President Leslie Page, has just returned from Russia.
I'd like to thank all my guests: Jacque Gerrard from the Royal College of Midwives, Chair of the Association for Improvements in the Maternity Services, Beverley Beech, Maureen Treadwell, co-founder of the Birth Trauma Association and author of parenting books, and broadcaster Liz Fraser.